I gotta emphasize this. I need to emphasize this again. Don't waste time, everybody out there. Do something. Start taking the steps.
Hey everybody, welcome to the BR Coalition podcast. My name is Jordan Berry. I'm here with my dad, Doug Berry, and today we're talking about the 5 categories that you need to be prepared in. We're going to go through all 5 of these throughout the podcast, but before we get started, Dad, can you lead some prayer?
You betcha. All right, let's do that. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Saint Joseph, terror of demons,
pray for us.
In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen.
All right, well, before we get started, I just want everybody to know that we do have a course called the Be Ready Emergency Preparedness course, aka BREP. Dad, you're actually representing that right now with the shirt you got on.
Prepper short.
Stay
ready.
That's right. We talk about not only the 5 categories you should be prepared in the course, but we talk about how you actually apply that and get it done. But first, we are offering a free download today, the Ultimate Preparedness Guide. It's a great way to get started to prepare for yourself and your family in natural means.
And with everything happening in the world today, son, I gotta emphasize this. I need to emphasize this again. Don't waste time, everybody out there. Do something. Start taking the steps. It's a free download. Just click on that link in the description. Get out there, get started, and start taking the right steps. I mean, look what's happening all around us, whether it's talk of war, whether it's diseases, whether it's financial issues, whatever it is. We need to be thinking about the basics. And now we're going to break that down, I know, in this podcast.
Yep. So you can check out brcoalition.com/prepare. And everything you need to know is right there. All right, well, let's get started. First category to be prepared in is shelter. So do you want to break that down a little bit for us, Dad? What do we mean by shelter when we say that's one of the 5 basic categories?
People think of their home. That's your shelter. That's your primary place. But it may be compromised. So you're thinking about your primary place you're going to live, the roof over your head, how it's structured, where it's located. But if that's compromised in any way, whether it's, just recently there was the train derailment and the chemical spill in Ohio, and, East Palestine had to evacuate. And so if you've got to leave your primary shelter, do you have other locations? Are you thinking of other places you might have to go? Maybe it's a wildfire. West Coast gets hit with that a lot. Other places in the country and the world do too. Maybe you get the tragedy of a tornado or of an earthquake, a natural disaster of some sort. If your primary shelter home is compromised and you have to go to another place, you've got to be thinking about where you'd go. And a lot of people don't. They don't have that kind of prefigured out there. I say start building conversations in community with other people and have those conversations. If something happens to you, you can come here. If something happens here, I may have to go to you. Other places even in the country where you could go in case your region of the country is hit with something. We just don't know what's around the corner. And it's good to be thinking about where I'm going to go. You're also thinking about the shelter of your vehicle, your car. What do you have in your vehicle? We talk about having a go bag, bug out bag, and some of this, again, is in that free download. Just how do you take the steps to have an emergency bag in your vehicle? Because that's your local shelter. If you're driving and you're in your vehicle, that's your shelter. And if something bad happens, and that's what you've got to find shelter in under whatever conditions, weather conditions, civil unrest, whatever it may be. What do you have in your vehicle in that localized shelter to help you get through that moment?
Yeah, let's get into the bug out bag a little bit. When we talk about shelter, there's kind of this idea that if everything hits the fan, we're going to be grabbing our go bags, throw it in the car. All the family is going to get in the truck together, and they're just going to drive into the wilderness and camp.
Get some hidden bunker out there somewhere.
Right. It's not realistic, honestly. And if you're leaving your house, that means there is something serious like a wildfire, like a chemical spill, like civil unrest. Could you just talk about the importance of having your home as a safe shelter and having what you need there? Because bugging out is probably unlikely.
Yeah, like you said, if you've got to bug out, you got a bigger problem on your hands. I mean, if you have to leave your home to go somewhere, or you're out somewhere and something happens, minimal equipment you're going to have on you, that you can keep in your vehicle. And a lot of people don't have anything in their vehicle except, candy wrappers and coffee cups laying on the floor. So if you're thinking about your home as your primary shelter, that's where you're going to have most of your materials, your stuff, call it gear, equipment, what have you. What it means is my extra food, my extra water, or anything that I have in my pantry, medical kits, anything is going to be at my home. I don't want to leave that if I don't have to. I want to bug in. I want to stay there. If I have to leave that, that's a bigger problem. I got to take what I can, what's necessary to go. But in my home, I want to make sure that I'm covering, the other categories that we're going to be addressing in this. I got to be thinking, is my home safe? Is it a secure place? Am I going to be having people coming over to my home? Have I arranged with others? Are neighbors going to be showing up, or other family members? If my place is able to handle that.
Yeah, you mentioned power. I think before we move on to number 2 here, having some idea of how you're going to preserve your food, because a lot of our food depends on refrigeration or freezing.
Mm-hmm.
So having some sort of idea of how you're going to have at least power for a few days till you figure out how you're going to keep that food going long term.
Oh, sure. And a lot of people want to rely simply on a generator. They're going to say, well, I got a generator. It's going to set it up outside, going to run power from there. I can run an extension cord off of it. Problem with the generator is you're limited by fuel, and you're also limited by the fact that the generator is going to have to be outside. In almost every scenario, it's going to have to be outside for venting purposes, carbon monoxide buildup and all that, exhaust. If you're limited by fuel, if it's a bigger disaster, bigger, crisis in some way where you can't even get fuel, now you're limited, and when your fuel runs out, your generator runs out. Being outside also can be a problem if it becomes a dangerous scenario where there might be civil unrest or looting, and people hear a generator, they know you've got power. They also know you probably have other things as well. That can be a red flag to draw people to you. I like the idea of a backup battery station, solar-powered battery station. You can recharge these things off of a wall outlet, but if the power is down, then you can use solar panels. They're quiet. They don't make noise. They don't draw attention. You can bring them in. You can actually put the panels outside and leave the device inside if your cables are long enough, depending on the position of your sun in relation to your house and all. But I can charge up my batteries. I can bring it back in at night. I don't have to risk it being outside. From that backup battery station, if I've got the right size, of course, I can run my refrigerator, my freezer. I can run a cook plate off of it. I can run some lights, some lanterns, recharge different items. And it's all silent. And if you get the right kind, good brand names, and we've got a lot of this on our website, brcoalition.com, and our course, our BREP course as well. You can get a really good quality brand that's going to last you a long, long time, many, many years.
So number 1 is shelter. Number 2, one of the most overlooked areas of preparedness is water. Water is the second, at least in this list that we have. These aren't in any particular order. They're all just as important.
Yeah, because you really need them all in some way, shape, or form.
Exactly. They're the basic needs, basic categories for preparedness. So number 2, water. You can only go 3 days without water, and those aren't fun days either. So
no.
Again, this is very overlooked. A lot of people will, it's fun to buy guns and ammo. It's fun to buy the cool little cans of freeze-dried food.
Yeah.
It's not nearly as fun trying to figure out how to preserve water in clean containers and portable containers. It's easy just to throw some plastic water bottles under the steps and call it good.
Yeah.
But it's going to last you not long in a crisis.
Yeah. When it comes to water, I like the redundancy rule. I mean, the redundancy rule in general is 2 is 1, 1 is none. And that happened to me recently when I always have a flashlight on me. So do you. Just a little flashlight, call it a tactical flashlight. It doesn't matter what you call it. I got a small flashlight in my pocket all the time. And I lost one a while back. And I was out, away from my home. I was out. I was actually visiting your brother. And I lost the flashlight. And I thought, oh no, I got to get another. Well, in my vehicle, I've got 4 others. So I was able to pull another one out, 2 is 1, 1 is none. I like 3 or 4. Yeah. So, and then I found the other flashlight when I got back. I had actually left it at the home here. But my point is, when it comes to water, to me, it's not 1, 2, 3, 4. It's like 7, 8, 9, 10 ways to store water, filter water. You don't want to risk not having water. You don't want to be without water. 3 days without water. And you're right, they're not fun days. You can go half a day and be dehydrated and come down with serious headaches and disorientation. People end up going to the hospital and getting an IV because of dehydration after a day. Imagine 2-3 days. Dehydration, according to people who have documented this, is a brutal way to die. It's very, very hard. Very painful.
Your organs will start shutting down and
Yeah.
just cause immense pain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you've got loved ones that you are watching go through dehydration and you didn't think in advance to have extra water on hand or water filters to be able to purify water. And the filters that are out there are great devices out there. You can scoop water out of a lake, out of a pond, out of a river, and run them through certain types of filtering devices that exist now. And they're on the market. You can get them online, just like that. And they're not that expensive, especially when you consider it's a life and death situation.
Mm-hmm.
So having stored water is important. Having water in smaller bottles, larger containers, so they're easy to carry, manipulate, move, give away if you have to, help people out. You can give small bottles of water out. You've got the 5 to 7 gallon jugs of water. You've got different types of filters, purifying means, all of that. I say go for it, because it's good to have a lot of those ways to take care of water.
And in the crisis, we're not just talking about water. Obviously, you need to drink water to stay hydrated. But we're also talking about, if you're storing up food like rice or anything along those lines, you need water to cook that. If you've got ramen noodles, you need water to cook that. If you get hurt, you got to cut, you got to clean it out. You need water for that. Go through your day, any given day, and just realize how much we actually use water. And we're so used to just going to that faucet, turning it on, and there it is, clean water right there. We can drink it. We can use it for cooking, cleaning, whatever. And just imagine that faucet being shut off.
And that's I was just going to say, son, that's a great kind of test of yourself, is imagine, just kind of live it out. Let's say, okay, we're going to pretend this evening at the house, we don't have any water coming out of the faucets, everybody. So we're going to have to live with what we have in the refrigerator, any stored water we have. And there are people out there who would say right away, well, I don't really have any stored water. Well, now's the time to work on that. As I say, the best time to prepare is 10 years ago. The next best time is right now. So let's get started right now on the basics, especially water.
Right. So first category is shelter. Second category is water. Third category, food. Another big one. We can go a little longer without food than water. They say, 3 minutes, no air, 3 days, no water, and 3 weeks, no food. Yeah. But again, that's till death.
That's a brutal 3 weeks.
Imagine going 3 days without food. It's not going to be fun.
Oh, sure. Just doing intermittent fasting.
And we're talking about adults here.
Yeah.
Children will get extremely sick if they go, much less than that. So, especially, I have children, you have grandchildren. Also, we have friends who have children. So if there's a crisis, we need to be ready to help those people. I'm not going to let my friend's kids starve and say, nope, you should have prepared. So these are just things we need to keep in the back of our head when we're thinking about these categories: shelter, water, and now food. So
yeah, it's not just us. It's others out there. It's those that have been entrusted to our care, those that we are friends with, neighbors with. We're supposed to be watching out. We're a brother's keeper. We're supposed to be helping people where we can, in the ways we can. And you're right. If we're not taking these steps with food and water in general, then we're really missing the boat on the importance of that responsibility and that duty. Think about this too, son. The term hangry, people go, oh, he's hangry. I'm hangry. Why? Because I went half a day without eating. I went a full day without eating. And now the attitude, the mood just tanks. People don't realize, if you don't have food for a day and you find yourself in a bad mood with headaches and you feel weak and kind of nauseous and so forth, imagine 2 days, 3 days, 5 days, a week. Imagine what that will do to people in a time when there's a desperation now.
Yeah.
Because we don't have that food. So having extra food, and I like what you said that about, let's back that up again about the water. You have all this rice and beans and so forth, and not enough water to cook the rice and the beans. The two go hand in hand. God created us to need food and to be hydrated. We've got to be looking at those as very basic and very important things to stock up on. And you can get the freeze-dried food, you can get dehydrated food, you can get 25-year food from emergency supply companies. That all exists, and you can buy those and have those out there. You can have food that is lightweight enough because it's dehydrated or freeze-dried. You can throw it in a backpack and bug out fast, and you can throw a dozen meals into a bag and hop in your car and go if you have to bug out fast. Again, you're going to need water to reconstitute those meals. But in general, it's available. And you can go to the grocery store and buy extra cans of tuna and soup. That's good too. Again, redundancy rule, do a little bit of all of it. Do a little bit of all of it.
And that's a great point too. If we don't have enough water or food, even a day, 2, 3, or we're just going off very little, desperation does set in, and that will affect our decision making. And we're much more liable to make poor decisions, do things we'll regret. And
Yeah.
especially in a crisis, things can escalate very quickly.
Yeah, I think people fall into the category sometimes when it comes to looking at what we're talking about here as almost a mechanical sort of thing. Like if your car doesn't have enough gas, the car won't run. If I don't have enough food, then physically I won't be able to run for. No, your attitude will change. Your hope can be lost. If you don't have food and water and you don't see it coming in the near future, desperation, as you just mentioned, can set in. That's a whole different thing. If my car doesn't have gas, my car doesn't start getting worried and anxious. My car doesn't get hangry. It just sits there with no gas in it. If we don't have food and water, that changes the dynamic of how we interact with each other on a psychological and emotional level. And when you take a society, a community of any kind, any size, and there's a shortage of food or water treatment plant gets shut down, community doesn't have water, people are lining up outside, National Guard shows up, FEMA shows up, handing out cases of water, panic can set in, anxiety can set in. It's a whole different ballgame. So it's not just about the mechanics of the body, it's about the way the mind and the heart work, emotions work off of hope.
Right.
And food, water, look, that's hope in a crisis when you know
Yeah.
you can get some food and water.
It's a great transition to the next category, which is the fourth one. So we have first one is shelter, second water, third food, fourth is defense. So if you have desperate people, even if you're not one of them, I mean, you look at any natural disaster such as Hurricane Katrina, I mean, the snowmageddon that just hit the South not a couple years ago.
Right.
It's not always you or your family that's going to be the problem. It could be outside sources. So having defense or means to defend yourself and your family is critical.
Yeah. And not just the guns blazing sort of attitude that some people have. When we're talking about it, we're talking about a defensive mindset that tries to de-escalate. That's stuff we always teach in BREP.
Absolutely.
And BR Coalition is how do we de-escalate? How do we diffuse? Not a fight posture that says, we're ready to go. Bad guys coming at us. Let's take them on. It's how do we de-escalate, diffuse? How do we get clever? How do we reduce the chaos? And having a plan to know how to defend and protect is a major part of being able to reduce and de-escalate any kind of crisis situation that could get out of hand and become violent.
Mm-hmm.
So the defensive measure is something we should have every day of our lives anyway, because you're walking through a grocery store, parking lot, you can get mugged, you can get assaulted, someone can break into your house. There's a home invasion in America roughly every 25 seconds. Roughly every 2 minutes, a woman is assaulted in this country, and those are the ones that are reported. Okay, so we have people that assault other people and hurt other people and break into homes. And in those homes, of the every 25 seconds or so statistic regarding homes being broken into, home invasions, roughly 30% of the time someone is home, and roughly 10% of the time someone is hurt or killed when that happens. With that in mind, you don't even need a serious crisis to have a need to be able to defend and protect. But we're talking about in a crisis scenario where things can really get out of hand. Like you mentioned, Katrina, looting was crazy. People were getting shot over things like water, or stealing, looting stores, stealing TVs and shoes.
It started off with looting, items such as TVs and shoes and clothes, and then it moved into, we need food and water.
Yeah, because this is going on longer than we thought.
Yeah. And you look at third world countries too, when there's wars, some of the genocides that have happened, like in Rwanda,
right,
or the
Bosnia.
People get really desperate really quick,
right,
because they weren't prepared. And you got to buddy up and really have a defense system going.
Well, in Bosnia, they talk about, one account of it is groups of 20, 30 or more people, gangs, basically roaming streets, doing what they want, taking what they want. And the average person, like you or I, even the two of us alone, standing up against 30 people is going to be quite a task. So they would say that, families had to band together, friends had to band together. And as one man puts it, who was in the Bosnian War, we made sure that at least 4 or 5 people were awake 24/7, all armed. Everybody else was ready to be armed too if they had to be woken up in the middle of the night. And pretty soon you got 15, 20 people now that are ready to go. But at least 4 or 5 people at all times ready to go. This is not a happy scenario to be thinking about. but it does go on right now as we record this. You got the war in Ukraine going on and other parts of the world where conflict is taking place. People need to be thinking, how do we work together, and having these conversations in advance and learning from one another. And it's not enough, I want to emphasize, just to say, well, I hunt, therefore I'm fine. You've got to be thinking about, more of a, let's call it tactical or call it defensive measures with regards to defensive protection. And it doesn't even always mean using firearms. It could be pepper spray, bear spray, OC spray, basically same idea, or other means. But in general, get busy now learning how to protect and defend, whether it's hand-to-hand conflict or firearms, or again, pepper spray, bear spray. Know the rules and laws of your state, your community. We did a podcast on the grave duty of self-defense. Everybody can check that out, and we really encourage you to. But having a plan to protect and defend is essential, especially in any kind of a crisis.
All right, moving on to the fifth and final category here. It's medical. So we have shelter, water, food, defense, and medical. This is probably the most overlooked area of preparedness. Like I said, sometimes we like to stock up on the food, a little bit of water. Defense is fun because, get all tactical. But medical, getting gauze, scissors, tourniquets, strategically placing them in your cars, in your vehicles, in your home, having one per person in your family, a med kit specifically designated for your children, yourself, your wife, or your friends, whatever your situation is. It's not as fun to do that stuff, or learn how to do the Heimlich hug, or learn how to, suture a wound or stop bleeding. It's hard to get into that stuff sometimes.
Well, you mentioned, there are guys out there that talk about, I've been in conversations with guys. One guy told me, I got like 10,000 rounds of ammunition and I got this and that. And I said, well, do you have body armor of any kind? Number one, do you have, just a vest, which only covers primarily the center mass, the torso area. It's not going to cover your head, your legs, and your arms.
It's surprisingly small. Anybody who's worn body armor, you're like, this is it. This is all I get. Because you still have to have range of motion to move about.
Absolutely. And the guy says to me, if I'm ready, if God calls me, I'm ready to go. I said, 10,000 rounds of ammunition. I remind him, I said, bullets go both ways. And, you get into a gunfight with someone, you get into a knife fight with somebody, you get into any kind of a fight with someone, you think you're just going to be delivering the punches or you'll be firing your gun. They're going to be fighting back. So not only do you need to be considering some form of, body armor protection, but even then, arms, legs, head, neck, so forth are vulnerable and exposed. So medical care is important. Being able to plug a wound, being able to plug a laceration or a knife shot, a gunshot, being able to plug a wound, a knife wound, a gunshot, laceration of some sort, even chopping wood. Because you got to go out in the woods and get some wood for your fire because you got no heat because power has been cut off due to whatever the disaster is. And you have a problem with the hatchet or the axe. I mean, whatever it might be. I mean, anybody who's worked construction, I've worked construction for years off and on. You've done enough yourself. And you even just hitting your thumb with a hammer, or I was working with a drill one time and I won't go into the story, but that drill popped off and hit my knuckle and tore up my knuckle. And I'm bleeding like crazy. And a Band-Aid out of back of my truck just wasn't enough. You're wrapping up with gauze and you're taping it up and everything, and you can go through a lot of gauze with one wound. We know that.
Yeah.
So we won't go into that story either. But the point is, you're right. We need to be thinking about the medical, and we need to have the skills to do the basics, from a Heimlich to basic CPR to stitching up a wound if you can't get to some emergency room or some urgent care clinic. They might not be available. They might be shut down. There's a number of reasons why. But you're right. We don't take the time like we should, and yet we still have time to do that. Most of us do. There are many good medical kits that are out there that you can buy that are on different websites, and some of them are pretty good. But you got to be careful. I mean, medical kit. What's your advice on medical kits? I mean,
medical kit, I would suggest to build your own because a lot of them don't have nearly enough gauze, and they have things like, little packets of, half dose aspirin or baby aspirin or little
25 tongue depressors.
Yeah, exactly. It's just things you wouldn't need. I highly recommend people putting together their own trauma kit. That gauze, quick clot, tourniquet, etc., and have that in their car with them at all times. One per person in your car. If you got 6 seats in your car, you should have 6 tourniquets, because if you're in an accident, you're just going to put one on yourself?
Yeah. Who gets it?
Who gets it? Exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying everybody's going to need a tourniquet.
Right. But
what if they do?
If you got even 2 people bleeding out and 2 people need it and you only have 1, you have to pick.
Yeah.
You got to make a decision who's going to get that.
And I don't want to make that decision.
I
so
don't.
I'm going to throw one on me if I need one so that I can maintain blood.
Right.
And then I'm going to throw it on everybody.
Work on everybody else I can.
As fast as possible.
For those people out there who are wondering, what do I got to do to build my own kit? You can get that information through our Be Ready Emergency Preparedness course, BREP. We have a whole course on this that gets into the medical part of this. And then some of it is common sense, like you mentioned, gauze, quick clot, which helps slow down bleeding.
There's a lot of free information online you can look up.
Yeah.
We have a specific unit in our course dedicated to medical preparedness.
Right.
We cover all 5 of the categories. But yeah, if you need something quick and easy, there's a lot of good stuff online that you can find. All right, so there you have it. We have shelter, water, food, defense, and medical, the 5 categories you need to be ready in. One thing we do want to mention as we're wrapping up here is the lone wolf mentality. It's very easy when you're getting into preparedness to have this kind of reserved, like, don't tell anybody, don't talk to anybody about it.
Right.
Either because you're embarrassed about it or because you don't want anybody to know about your stuff, which I understand where you're coming from if you're on either side of those tracks. But do you have anything to say about community and not being the lone wolf?
In general, I would say in most every scenario, you're not going to be able to do it on your own. You're going to need help. Everybody out there, unless you are a highly trained survivalist, all right, and there are those who might be able to pull that off. You're going to be out in the wilderness, away from people and away from all society. Okay. But even for how long are you going to be able to make that happen? We really need people. God has really built us to need community and need one another. So the lone wolf idea almost never works. Again, rare exception now and then. Okay, can't blanket statement, something like that. Taking the time to build a community in advance is a part of preparedness, though. And so, I've had conversations with people all over the country. So if I have to leave where I live, for whatever reason, this region of the country is devastated by something, I can go to other parts of the country, and I already have places where people have said, yeah, you can come here. And I've said they can come here. So building a community is such a key part of this. And this is something we cannot emphasize enough. It takes time to train. It takes time to build these things up. It takes time to learn some skills. You can't just go online, order $10,000 worth of equipment, put it in a room in your house and say, I'm ready. Yeah. There are other pieces of this that have to be considered.
Something we repeatedly say all the time when we're talking about this is gear does not equal skill.
Right.
Just because you own gear that could be useful in a survival situation doesn't mean A, you know how to use it, or B, you're not going to hurt somebody else while you're trying to use it. Right. It could actually become more dangerous if you're relying on something that you don't know how to use.
Exactly. Yeah. So work on the community, work on the training, work on taking steps now. And we like to use the word integrate this. Integrate this into your life. It's not a balanced approach in the sense of I do this over here and then I do this over here. This is my prepping life and this is my regular life. It's the idea that we're integrating these things together. So to go through life understanding that preparedness is just a way of living. It's a head on a swivel. I'm constantly just paying attention. I'm not anxious. I'm not paranoid. I don't think someone's going to jump me from behind. Mm-hmm. I just live that way.
People don't call you anxious or paranoid if you have insurance on your home, on your cars. Right. We have life insurance. We insure our own lives so that to make sure that people we leave behind are taken care of when we're gone, and we don't know when that'll be. It could be natural death, could be a car accident today, but it's the same idea.
Yeah.
Is that we're integrating this insurance idea into our daily life.
Yeah. Other areas.
We're integrating preparedness and survival into our daily life as well.
Exactly. That's exactly it. And there's a piece that comes from that. It's a piece for yourself and it's a piece for others. I'm at peace knowing that you live that way because now I know that my son and his wife and kids aren't going to end up in a really bad scenario if something tragic happens, crisis. I can't get there to help you for whatever reason, or you can't get to me. You know that I'm doing things to live in a certain way. If I'm on the road somewhere alone in my vehicle, I have stuff in my vehicle and stuff on me that's going to give me a really good start to start getting back home or to deal with whatever's coming up. That shows a certain love for the people that you care about in your life. The better prepared you are, the more you're actually showing people around you, in one sense, that you love them. And you're giving them a sense of peace because you're someone who takes these steps to be better prepared.
All right. Well, I think anything else you want to mention before we close out here?
Yeah, I would simply say that the Be Ready Emergency Preparedness course that we offer, BREP for short, Prepper, get ready, stay ready on the shirt here. This is something that addresses what we're talking about here, but it also helps people understand, how to even change a tire, how to jumpstart a battery when it's dead, and not even just off another vehicle, which we do show that, but it's also how to jumpstart it off of, a little charging device, little battery jumpstart devices. A variety of things. We talk about how to secure your home, and not just in a self-defense scenario, if someone breaks into your house, but how do you make your home more secure, more reliable? How do you live a life that just integrates a variety of different things that are safer, healthier, and better for you and everybody that have been entrusted to your care? So I encourage people to consider the Be Ready Emergency Preparedness course, because there's a lot of detail in there. And again, it's not a run for the hills, get into your underground bunker prepping sort of thing. This is how do you live a life that makes you better prepared so you can serve others better? You can be a great example of a Christian by being prepared with these 5 main categories. And that's something that everybody, if we all took the steps to do, everybody would feel a lot better and a lot less stressed out and a lot less desperate in any crisis that may come our way.
You can check out that course that we're talking about, the BR Emergency Preparedness course at brcoalition.com/course if you're interested and you want to learn more about it. But for today, if you just want to get started, something easy and free and quick, check out that download in the description, the Ultimate Preparedness Guide. Again, it's completely free, and it's just a great way to get started.
It is.
So, all right. Well, again, we want to encourage everybody listening, analyze your own life, your own family situation, and look at your shelter, look at your water, your food, your defense, your medical, and see if are you strong in some areas or weak in some areas, or are you weak in all the areas, Just do a little bit today and moving forward. Make a few decisions to change your life. Again, integrate it into your life to be better prepared.
Even if they're little steps, but they're going the right direction, ultimately, they're bigger steps. But don't forget to subscribe to the channel and write in the comment section anything you'd like us to address in the future, and we'll see if we can get after it for you.